guys, welcome back to my channel, Kazzy here, and in this video I'm going to be sharing with you my June wrap-up. At the beginning of June I shared with you a number of books that I wanted to get to in the month of June, and they were A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J Maas, Heartless by Marissa Meyer, The Son of Neptune by Rick Riordan, The Mark of Athena by Rick Riordan, Hunted by Megan Spooner, and a Captain America and Black Widow team-up comic book. I stuck fairly well to that list of books that I wanted to get to. I deviated slightly, so I managed to read 6 books in total and a comic book. So without further ado, let's just get into them. The first book that I read was A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J Maas. It's the first book in the Court of Thorns and Roses trilogy. So this follows Feyre. Feyre is a huntress and she's the only hunter in her family because her family had descended from a very aristocratic livelihood. They've fallen from grace, and so Feyre is the only one that really does anything about it, and her sisters don't bother, her father doesn't bother, and so she goes out hunting one day and accidentally kills a fairy, and for punishment she can either be killed, you know, eye for an eye, or go and stay in the fairy realm, and the action continues from there. I liked it. I wasn't completely blown away by it. The start was good. It just got really into the whole aspect of it. It got moving very fast. The middle kind of dwindled, and then at the end I absolutely loved it. I completely devoured the end third of the book, and that's where the action really picked up for me. The middle part was kind of eh. At times I wanted to punch Feyre. She was so stubborn and it was getting annoying. I didn't feel like I was getting to enjoy her character. I didn't particularly like her character at all. I preferred Lucian, and if you watched my video where I share the actors that I imagined as I was reading this book, it's not that I wanted them to play these characters, these were just the faces that I used as templates to imagine the characters, and Lucian was probably my favourite. Because he was so snarky and so snide and he had the fox mask, I really preferred him to any of the other characters, and he's not featured heavily in it. I really enjoyed it, I liked it. I'm interested to see what happens next in A Court of Mist and Fury and then A Court of Wings and Ruin. For the first foray into Sarah J Maas's writing, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed her writing style, I enjoyed the characters that she created, the names that she created, and this realm that she created just using the UK and Ireland as a template and the way that she's broken up the entire country. The backstories of some of these characters, especially the fairies and the villain, I very much loved the villain. A bit underutilized I felt, and it just seemed that she had a very short shelf life to me. I would have loved to have encountered more of her. As I said, it didn't particularly blow me away, but I really did enjoy it, and I give it 4 out of 5 stars. When I finished that, I moved on to Heartless by Marissa Meyer. This is a origin story for the Queen of Hearts from Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. So this follows the character of Catherine, Lady Catherine Pinkerton, and she is the daughter of a marquess and a marchioness, and the marchioness has very high hopes for Catherine in marrying the King of Hearts, but the King of Hearts is a bit of a loser. He's a bit eccentric, he's not at all attractive, he's very weird, as you pretty much are in Wonderland, is pretty much a prerequisite, but she has no desires to marry the King of Hearts, but she has desires to create her own bake shop. She wants to run her own bakery with her best friend Marianne, who happens to be her lady's maid, but that's not going to happen, and so this book follows her origin stories from that, and I really enjoyed this. At times I felt the male characters were a bit lacking. I enjoyed the character of Jest, but at times he felt rather juvenile, and I don't know about you guys, but I am quite sick and tired of this whole trope where the male is like, you don't have to do this if you don't want to, but I secretly want you to do it. Just do it. But I don't want you to do it if you don't want to. I am sick of that. I honestly am. And Jest was quite like this a lot of the time. He was the one that was trying to manipulate Kath, but at the same time he didn't want to. And it hints at the story of Through the Looking Glass. I haven't read that one, but it has ties in with it, and the Jabberwock and the Red and White Queens. The plot I particularly liked. I enjoyed it. I didn't particularly love it. I wasn't particularly swept away by it, but I enjoyed it, and it was very cute, and you can understand how she became the Queen of Hearts in this, and the ending just wraps it up nicely so that it just segues nicely into Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and why she is heartless and why she literally just cries off with her head at every given moment. This was the first time I read a book by Marissa Meyer, and I loved her writing style. I loved the world that she created. It wasn't overtly Wonderland-esque, but In my head, I was seeing Wonderland anyway. I love the way that she tied in characters from Lewis Carroll's Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. Why is that so difficult to say? Particularly Marianne, and I was actually able to see how those characters were able to fit in. Yeah, I just really enjoyed it. I deviated from my June TBR and picked up *TheDarkest Minds* by Alexandra Bracken. 98% of America's children have been wiped out by the mysterious virus that attacks them when they enter puberty, but only 2% survived, and those 2% gained these mysterious abilities that turned them basically into mutants. So they are sent to a rehabilitation camp so that they can find a cure for this disease, this new disease that has cropped up as a result of the previous one. But it's actually a facade for a forced labour camp and laboratories for experimentation on these kids. So you follow the character of Ruby throughout this book. She tells how first kid in her class died and how she woke up one morning when she was 10 and everything was different for her, and how she came to the camp and what she did there and how she got out. I was so excited to read this book. I thought this was going to be great, and when I was reading about the camp I thought of Genosha from X-Men. If you've ever watched the TV series, there's Genosha, and it's a forced labour camp for mutants, and they like cancel out the powers by wearing these collars, and this pretty much read like Genosha for me. And the scientists read like the Cabal from Sanctuary to me. So at the start of this book I was very intrigued. I loved the start of it, but then it fell sour for me as soon as Ruby got out and she met other kids her age. A lot of the time this book was very confusing, particularly with the way that Alexandra Bracken was writing. I think whoever edited this, they should have gone over it with a fine-tooth comb one more time, because there were times when I was utterly confused by the sentences in this book. There were 2 instances where this was very confusing. Ruby woke up one morning, remember that morning, and she was just seeing the moon remaining in the sky for a little bit longer, and then she looked at the clock and it said 5:03 p.m. PM. It should have said AM. I thought it was like, right, okay, that's like a mix-up on the dash, you know, it's the wrong time, whatever. But then when she was saying the times the rest of the day, it was AM. So obviously that wasn't correct. And there are times when I was like thinking that physics just wasn't right. Like, I know what the back of a minivan looks like, but at times it felt so confusing. Ruby and the character Liam were asleep in the front, and I thought they were just sitting up, resting against the windows, but apparently about 5 pages later I find out that Liam's head's on her lap. Why was that not mentioned? And another point is when they are sitting by a lake and there's a call for everybody to come to dinner. One of the characters stands up and just throws the bread away, but there's no mention of the other character getting up and them walking. Next thing I know, they're at the campfire. I'm like, why was it not mentioned that both of them stood up and went? Like, I'm not that stupid in that I need everything pointed out to me, but I like to know, right, everybody's gone. Like, the way I read it is just like he stood up and he was waiting for her to stand up. There was just something about it that just did not click with me. Nothing particularly blew me away, especially when the villain is called Clancy. All I could see was a little young Police Chief Wiggum in this book when any time I read the name Clancy. I didn't gel with that at all. And again, there was this love triangle, and I'm kind of sick of love triangles and like romances that just happen instantly. You know, oh, you've only known her for about 2 weeks. Oh, I followed my limit. I've risked my life for you. I gave it 3 stars. I honestly did. I liked it, but I didn't love it. But I didn't dislike it. And it makes me wonder if I want to read the next 2 books in the series, because the way this ended, it was no surprise. It just didn't make me want to dive into the next one. I don't know. And like, I was so excited for this because everybody raves about this book, and I was just like, I really don't see it. Sorry. Once I finished that, I picked up Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. I have never read Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. I know, that is like sacrilegious. To be perfectly honest, my education was not that great. Like, I know you probably would be reading this book in primary school, but I don't recall reading this in primary school at all. I remember reading a crap ton of Roald Dahl and Dick King-Smith, but not Lewis Carroll. We did not read a lot of classics in primary school, especially like children's classics. Even at university I never encountered this. Even at high school I never encountered this. And so I thought I would pick it up after reading Heartless just to see how it all tied in. That's what I was saying about earlier with Heartless and the characters tying in, the characters of Marianne, the Duchess, and the March Hare and the Mad Hatter, everything just managed to fit in nicely from reading Heartless, and I probably should have read them the other way around, but I didn't have this at the time when I was reading Heartless, so I thought I would pick this up. I enjoyed it. At times it was a bit of a struggle for me because as I'd never encountered it before, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. At times I was thinking, this is a children's book? This is quite heavy for a children's book. Some things I didn't particularly gel with. I didn't really absolutely love it to the moon and back, but I enjoyed it, and so I give this one 4 stars. Naturally, afterwards I had to watch the Disney's versions of Alice in Wonderland. For the monthly dose of Rick Riordan, I picked up The Son of Neptune, which is the second book in the Heroes of Olympus series. I must say that in my May wrap-up and June TBR, I said that Jason was the son of Neptune. He is not. He's actually the son of Jupiter. You dumbass. Oh, I love the way that nobody pointed that out to me. And so when I went into reading this one, I was like thinking, oh, wait a second, Jason, son of Jupiter? What? I think it's oh, right. The ball just dropped there. He's the son of Jupiter, and Percy's the son of Neptune, because this book is about Percy. I love this. I like, for the chunk of it, right, seriously, this book is a chunker. It's about 500 pages long, but it's not on Bible pages. That's why it's so sick. I love this. I love the way that Rick Riordan is combining Greek and Roman mythologies. At times it's confusing because some of the themes overlap, like Olympus and the underworld, and some of the names overlap as well because the Romans are like, yeah, we'll let the Greeks have that one. When I was reading this book, at times I was thinking, oh god, could this quest just be over already? Can they just get to the location? I didn't say what this is about. Okay, this is about Percy. He, like, if you've read The Lost Hero, which is the first book in this series, follow Jason. He has amnesia. He winds up at Camp Half-Blood, but Percy is his alternative as well. So Percy has the same thing. Percy wakes up with amnesia, but ends up at Camp Jupiter on the opposite side of the country outside San Francisco. And so Percy has no idea who he is, but quickly figures out that he can control water, and so he's the son of Neptune, which is Poseidon's Roman persona. And so he quickly finds out that he is going to be part of this quest to the land beyond the gods, and it just follows Percy and 2 new friends on his quest. At times I'm like thinking with all of the quests, they're like pinballing all over the country, and at times I find that quite tedious, but it's very enjoyable at the same time. And I just love Rick Riordan. I love the way he writes. Sometimes I'm like laughing out loud, sometimes I'm like sitting on the edge of my seat wanting to find out what happens next. He's a very visual writer. He is so good at communicating what happens, and I was never lost in a second of this book, and I really enjoyed it. And I give this 5 stars because I just love it, and I just love everything about this world, the Greek mythology, Roman mythology, and I cannot wait for the next one, which is Mark of Athena, which is the next one, and it's hinted at in this one. Then the last book that I picked up in June was Codename Verity by Elizabeth Ween, or Vine, whatever way you want to pronounce her name. I don't particularly know what way it is pronounced. I've heard it Ween, I've heard it Wine, I've heard it Vine. She just wrote this book, and this is about 2 girls in World War II, and they are part of the war effort back home. One is a translator and one is a pilot, and they end up in Nazi-occupied France. One is captured by the Germans, and the other one is part of the resistance in France. Never attempt to do that again, Cassie. At first this book was super confusing. At first I thought I was really grasping what was happening, but I was kind of trying to listen to the TV at the same time, and my aunt and uncle talking as well, so I got lost very easily. So at about 23 pages I said, right, I'm going to start again, and I did, and I was just hooked from there, and I could not put it down. This follows 2 perspectives. As I said, there's 2 girls involved in this. So the first part of the book is told by the first character, Verity, and I love the way that she wrote. At times I was wondering, okay, this isn't what I was expecting. And that's exactly what she wanted you to think. That's exactly the whole point of it is. It's not what you're supposed to expect. So it's very clever like that. And so you only figure that out at the very end of her part. And you're like, oh, I see what you did there. Very clever. Clever girl. Clever girl. And then the last part of the book is the second character, Maddie. There were times in this, when I was reading Maddie's section, that I was just physically gasping. I was like, no! Oh my god! It just tied in so well with the first part, and you're just like shocked at some of the names that popped up and some of the people that popped up, because like they were mentioned in the first part and then they feature in the second part in a completely different way, and you're thrown through a loop. And that ending, I was not expecting that. I was not expecting that at all, and I loved it. I loved it, and like the very last page made me want to cry, and I never cry at books. Never, ever, ever. I've never cried at a book, but this made me want to well up a little bit. Just a little bit. So like, you know, it pulled at my heartstrings when it did that. And I loved Elizabeth's writing style. It was just so easy to get into, and I loved the characters, like especially the characters. There's a couple of Scottish characters, and she writes the way that they speak, and so you can literally just hear the accent just flowing through you, and you just love them all the more. I loved all of the characters. There were some I loved to hate. And it was just a fabulous, fabulous book. And I would highly recommend this. I just loved it. 5 stars all the way. And for the comic book, I picked up Captain America and Black Widow Mayhem in the Multiverse. This was not what I was expecting either. Like, the way that the back of the comic book describes it is that you encounter a alternate universe version of Black Widow. You do. But I thought it was going to be a bit of a switcheroo. Other universe Black Widow would come forward, and this universe of Black Widow would go there. I didn't realize that Cap and Black Widow go there with Black Widow from there. And you find out that multiple versions of this one woman have banded together to pretty much just take over the world. And in the other universe that they've gone to, in the parallel universe that they've gone to, she has taken over. Everything's being destroyed, everybody's being killed. They kind of need Cap in this universe because their one had been killed, I think. I read it a couple of weeks ago. I can't particularly remember exactly what happened. It was a quick read, and I love the artwork in this. I love the sassiness of Black Widow because she's always sassy, and like, just the way Cap just bands everybody together and just comes up with a plan. And it brings in other characters from the Marvel Universe as well, beyond Avengers. And I really enjoyed that about it. It was quite interesting to see other characters band together with Captain America and Black Widow. So that wraps up this video, guys. Those are all the books that I read in June, of 6 books and 1 comic book. I think that was pretty damn good, considering that none of those were particularly short, except for Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, of course. That was only about 140 pages, and the other ones were about 400 to 500. Let me know what books you read in June, or if you've read any of these books in any previous months. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!